Dawn lays a thin sheet over Fairmont Heights, a curated quiet of brushed plaques and hedges clipped to geometry. A black sedan signals right and glides from the gated mouth of the neighborhood. A patrol cruiser slides in behind. A crisp chirp. The small mechanical heart on the officer's chest begins to record. He does not request identification. He reaches for ownership. "Is this your car?" Officer Tyler Grant's tone is velvet over gravel. His gaze moves in sequence. Badge to logo, paint to the brown hands steady at 10 and 2. Only then the face. Inside the sedan, breath trims itself to size. The driver keeps still. A pale coat opens an inch and shows a dark hem, the suggestion of a robe. Restraint isn't a pause, it is a choice. "You live in this neighborhood?" He leans just enough to press place against person. Behind him, the security gate glides. Sprinklers so light across the lawn like glass thread. The question gains weight because the zip code was named first. She stays forward on the road that slopes toward the courthouse dome. A quiet inventory forms, not of insults, but of rules. Belonging is not an element of cause. Geography is not a statute. His finger hovers near the hem at her collar. "The costume, what's that for?" The smile that follows is a cut polished to a shine. A rule she has lived by for decades stirs awake. The Fourth Amendment, plain as morning. Stops and searches require reasons that can be spoken aloud, not hunches dressed as procedure. A jogger slows on the shoulder. He hesitates, then raises his phone. Another angle, another clock. "Driving below the minimum," Tyler adds, circling a finger as if a circle could create a defect. Headlamp looks off. Still no request for license or registration. Still no citation to a code section. Sequence matters, and the sequence is wrong. He reaches for identity with a sentence meant to shrink. "You don't look like a judge." Thermal paper feeds from a mobile printer, a gray ribbon writing a ticket into the air between them. The door unlatches. The woman steps out. Sunlight climbs her shoulder and catches stitched letters at her collar. Judge Whitfield. The jogger's camera holds the reflection, steady and patient. Tyler checks the collar, checks the lens at his chest. Recalculation moves across his face. Fairmont at 7 amplifies what it hears. The avenue is ceremonial. The courthouse waits down the slope, steps taking the first gold of the day. Attention reveals order, car before person, zip code before name, clothing before process. Bias enters as sequence, in what eyes choose first and what mouth asks next. She has not been asked for identification. He has not articulated a statute. He has named neighborhood, floated suspicion, tried to conjure a mechanical flaw with a gesture. A headlamp looks off, a speed below minimum that ignores lane, signal, and posted limits meant for this stretch. Words arranged to sound like law instead of being it. Inside the quiet she keeps, the inventory lengthens. When power forgets its borders, there are remedies. Some are quiet, some are written. 30 years on the bench taught her to let paper hold heat so people do not have to. Silence, properly handled, is a tool. The jogger plants his feet and keeps filming. The body camera's red dot blinks. 2 ledgers now. Every breath a timestamp. Every pause a record of how long dignity lasted before someone tried to shave it down. Headlamps? Inspected last week. The receipt sits in the glove box with the ink still new. Map and GPS, rightmost lane, signal as required. Speed within the posted minimum designed for this corridor. Facts ordinary as sidewalks, which is why someone tried to smudge them. He holds out the ticket. Not yet a warning. Not yet mercy. His hand hovers toward the collar again, making a joke of a garment that is not a joke. She looks at the paper without taking it. Under the headline of restraint, another rule turns like a coin in a practiced palm. Federal money binds policy, and policy forbids drawing maps of people by skin and address. No need to name the section to know what it forbids. No need to recite a number to know where a record will go if a record is required. Her voice arrives low and exact. You haven't asked for my identification. Not a challenge. A notation that survives rooms and retellings. He blinks, clears his throat, does not ask. The order stays wrong. The neighborhood resumes its curated hum. The gate whispers. A delivery truck exhales. The badge on his chest throws a shard of light that reads less like triumph than exposure. The camera keeps everything it is given. She returns her hands to 10 and 2. The robe's hem stays where it is, not for spectacle but for truth in fabric. She is not merely enduring him. She is working. Every second is placement in a file yet to be opened. Every choice is architecture, of patience, of record, of the room where paper will speak, so people do not have to bleed out their story. He softens, but only after the caller answers more clearly than he has. Consider this a warning, he says, letting the late arrival of procedure pose as judgment. The printer's ratchet stills. The paper hangs, unclaimed between them. The jogger lowers his phone, eyes traveling from cruiser to sedan to the courthouse down the hill, as if he can already see the morning reassembled under brighter lights. Somewhere a request for public records will be drafted. Somewhere a radio log will be forwarded. Somewhere a policy binder will be opened and found thinner than anyone prefers to admit. Poise over rage. Law over noise. Not a sermon. A choreography. A measured breath. A steady wheel. A glance that takes in badge, lens, sun. The scene writes itself because the machines are already writing, because the city pays for cameras and cameras keep their promises better than people sometimes do. He steps back a half-inch. She settles back into the sedan. The neighborhood's quiet closes over the asphalt like water. Light travels the stitched name and turns it legible to any eye willing to look. A chirp began it. A lens keeps it. Questions about ownership and belonging were placed where a statute should have been. A robe was mocked and then recognized. A ticket tried to arrive before the law. The morning, careful and composed, now holds a record, and the record will know where to go. The ticket hangs between them. Tyler sniffs once, then again. "I'm catching a smell," he says. "Something unusual. Mind if I take a look inside?" "I'll follow the process," Ada answers. "Please state the specific reason for a search." He glances at the gate. "You know how people get in a neighborhood like this. Fancy wheels, borrowed sometimes. Things get moved, things get left in cars." "Reason," she says. "Not suggestion." The jogger lifts his phone higher. "Pop the glove box for me," Tyler says. "We can get ahead of this." "No," Ada replies. "Not without cause. I'll cooperate through the proper order." He nods toward the headlamp. Still looks off. "The inspection was last week," she says. "The receipt is in the glove box you have not asked to access." "Headed to the courthouse today? Some kind of ceremony?" "There is always court," she says. He taps the ticket. "I could make this bigger. Folks outside here borrow a look, borrow a car, borrow a title. You issued a ticket before asking for identification. she says. That concerns me more than borrowed language. The jogger's camera picks up the small red blink on Tyler's chest. I do smell something, Tyler insists. Open the trunk. Simple request. A simple request needs a lawful reason, Ada says. State it. The printer at his side hums. He flips the ticket as if that changes it. Step out so I can have a look around you, he adds, for officer safety. I already stepped out, she says, and you changed the paper in your hand. He studies her sleeves, the collar, the car. I'm making sure you belong where you say you belong. Place is not proof, she says. Process is. His eyes shift. Confident, careful, then uneasy. Let's keep this simple, he says. I can write this as a verbal warning. You can be on your way. It was written already, she says. It is on your paper. He folds the ticket. I can fix that. Fixing sequence after the fact is not the sequence, she says. We're both professionals, right? He tries. Mornings move fast. If there's anything in the car you forgot from last night, now's the time to tell me. Nothing is forgotten, she says, and the car is not on trial. He shifts his weight. Do you live in Fairmont Heights? He repeats. Or are you visiting someone? I am leaving Fairmont Heights, she answers, then adds. 716, right turn signal engaged, rightmost lane, no obstruction. You memorize that for me? For the record, she says. I'll call this a warning and we'll be done, he says. You have not asked for license and registration, she replies. You have not articulated a statutory reason for a search. You have suggested I do not belong in a place and a vehicle that are mine. He looks at the jogger. He looks at the blinking red near his heart. Ma'am, he says, let's not escalate this. I am not escalating anything, she says. I am standing still. The jogger adjusts to keep both cameras in frame. If I walk your trunk in your back seat, Tyler says, and we're clean, you go in 5. You will not, she answers. Without cause, you can say clearly and stand by later. He exhales. Consider it handled, he says. We're done here. Noted, she says. She reaches to the console, takes a pen, and writes 3 lines on the back of a receipt. He watches the pen. What are you writing? Time, location, unit number, she says. For the record. You don't need to do that, he says. I already did, she answers. Let me see your license, he says suddenly. You may ask now, she says. But you have already issued a ticket, then changed it. The order matters. I'm asking now, he repeats. You may observe what you recorded, she says. Your camera knows the order. He swallows. License, please. She keeps the pen in her hand. State the reason for the stop. Below minimum speed, he says. Headlamp defect. Neither justifies a search, she says, and neither was accompanied by a request for identification until now. He hesitates. License, he says again, softer. She nods once, then pauses. Will you state on your camera that you requested identification before issuing the ticket? He says nothing. Will you state that you downgraded the ticket to a warning after reading my collar? She asks. He looks at the stitched letters, then at the lens. License, he says. She opens the wallet, holds the card where the body-worn camera can see it, then lowers it before he can take it. The camera has it, she says, and the time. He does not reach again. We're done, he says. You said that already, she replies. He glances at the jogger. Sir, you can move along. I'm on a public shoulder, the jogger says. I'm fine right here. Tyler turns back. Ma'am, I'm documenting this as a warning. You documented a ticket, she says. Then a warning. The record will reflect both. Are you refusing cooperation? He asks. I'm insisting on procedure, she says. He rubs his temple. This doesn't have to be complicated. It already is, she says. Because you complicated it. He lowers his voice. Do you want to file a complaint? She looks at the camera on his chest. You already filed one, she says. You turned it on. He blinks. Are we finished? You tell me, she says. State your final action. He clears his throat. Verbal warning. Driver released. Thank you, she says. She caps the pen. The receipt with 3 neat lines slides into the visor. Drive safe, he says. I always do, she answers. He steps back. She signals. The sedan pulls away. The jogger keeps filming until the cruiser is just another car in the stream. On the seat beside her, the pen rests. 3 lines. Time, location, unit number. Enough to build a straight spine through what just bent. Sun works the curb like a spotlight. When Ada steps out, the stitched name at her collar catches it clean. Judge Whitfield. The jogger steadies his phone. Tyler freezes a half beat, then rearranges his voice as if changing uniforms on the fly. Verbal warning, he says. We will keep it simple. You printed a ticket, Ada answers. Now you are offering a warning. He folds the paper once, then again. It happens. Mornings get messy. She looks at the lens over his heart. State your final action for the record. He swallows. Verbal warning, he repeats. The mirror throws back the red blink. Tyler shifts to hide the lens. Glass does not cooperate. He gestures at her collar. You understand why I asked questions. We have had people pretend to be officials. Fake badges. Fake robes. Today you did not request my license before printing, she says. You reduced the paper after reading my collar. I want that sequence clear. No one is accusing you of anything, he says. You already did, she says. Do you still need my identification? He hesitates. No, we are done. Say it, she says. On your camera. He nods. Stop concluded. Driver released with a verbal warning. The jogger tilts his phone to hold bodycam and paper in one frame. If you feel this was inappropriate, Tyler says, you can contact the department. I know the department, Ada says. I know the court. I also know how records travel. It is a nice robe, he says. People get those online now. She does not answer. Unit number, she says. He names it. Time and location. He reads them. She repeats each aloud as she writes. Do you reside in Fairmont Heights? He asks again. I reside with the law, she says. It commutes with me. You asked about headlamps. Would you like the inspection receipt? No, he says quickly. You are free to go. She steps to the mirror, checks lane and gate, then steps back. Officer, she says, you changed course after reading my collar. If I had stepped out in a sweater, would we still be here? He does not answer. That is all, she says. He tucks the folded ticket into his vest. The jogger pans to capture the motion. Tyler taps his radio, mutters a code, and squares his shoulders. Drive safe, he says. I always do, she answers. Do you? Yes, ma'am. She returns to the driver's seat, door open. For your notes, the sequence, she says. Stop. No identification request. Ticket printed, collar read, ticket reduced, verbal warning. He meets her eyes. Understood. For the record, she adds. State whether you requested identification before printing. Silence. Then, no. And state whether you changed the disposition after reading my caller. A longer pause. Yes. Tyler notices and turns his shoulder, but the mirror keeps the angle. Do you still claim a smell? Ada asks. He shakes his head. Negative. Do you have a code section for below minimum speed on this block? No. Thank you, she says. Clarity helps. The radio crackles. A dispatch asks his status. He presses the mic. Traffic stop concluded. Copy, the radio replies. She caps her pen. One more item, she says. Please confirm the time. 7:21. She writes it. Received. Now. Good morning, she says. Good morning, he replies. She closes the door. The sedan waits, signal ticking. She lets 2 cars pass. Tyler steps back to his cruiser. The badge catches light. He watches the sedan's mirror, which shows him to himself. Ada breathes once, twice. 30 years of mornings line up behind her like precedent. She will not argue on asphalt. She will argue where argument belongs, with paper and light. The sedan moves. The jogger keeps filming until the cruiser shrinks into traffic. Question held for later. If the caller had not spoken, would the warning exist? If the robe had slept in a closet, would the ticket have grown teeth? Fairmont Heights returns to quiet. But a path has opened from roadside to office to courtroom, where bias is not a feeling. It is a policy with consequences. The morning knows the way. So does the record. Boxes lean against the wall in Ada's new chambers. Labels neat as a verdict. Bench notes, ethics, maps. Aaliyah Brooks steps in with a laptop and a small nod. She reads the 3 lines Ada wrote on a receipt. Time, location, unit number, then sets the computer on the table between them. Show me, Ada says. A city map fills the screen. Aaliyah's finger traces a blue thread. Right lane, signal on, minimum met, she confirms. Ada leans in. Aaliyah splits the screen. Left, the officer's chest view, a red pulse tucked near the edge. Right, the jogger's phone, held mid-breath. She slides a dial. Both clips align on the first question. Is this your car? Comes in stereo. Marker, Aaliyah says, tapping a key. She advances. You live in this neighborhood? Marker. The costume. What's that for? Finger near a collar. Both lenses catch it. Marker, Aaliyah repeats. The thermal printer sings, and paper appears in the officer's hand. Ada doesn't look away. Before any request for license. Roll back 2 seconds, Aaliyah says. They listen again. No request. Only the song of the printer and the line about how mornings get messy. Sequence, Aaliyah says, but not as a declaration. She ticks it with her fingers so the screen agrees. No ID, ticket first. Caller read, ticket reduced, verbal warning. A chime interrupts. A voicemail icon blinks. Play it, Ada says. A pleasant voice from the police desk. Preliminary review finds no policy violation at this time. The timing is as clean as the tone. I moved in last month, she says softly. I have studied this for years. I didn't plan a test. The morning offered one. Then we confirm it together, Aaliyah replies. On screen. She opens a scanned slip from a corner garage. Headlamp inspection, she says. The shop owner answers on speaker over a fan and a radio. Clean beam stamped last week, he says. If you need the duplicate, I have it. Lamp is clean, she says, typing 2 words, then points back to the video. Listen for the smell. They do. It arrives late after the printer, then vanishes when the caller speaks. Aaliyah clicks to a plain page of public stop data she pulled before walking in. No charts, no rainbow, one line. Population, she says. Black drivers, 28%. She scrolls one notch. Stops on the Riverbend corridor, 52%. Ada breathes once. And below minimum? Rare, Aaliyah says. But when it happens here, the share tilts the same way. Ada taps the HOA key fob with her index finger. The mirror did, Aaliyah says. She freezes a frame where badge and lens sit together in the chrome. Bodycam and bystander cam agree on the small things, which is why they crush the big excuse. Ada lifts the unopened HOA letter, weighs it in her palm, and sets it down. I don't want a headline, she says. I want a policy that outlives me. Then we pick the tool that builds, Aaliyah answers. You do not argue as the person who was stopped. You argue as a city that must learn. Ada nods. I called you for that sentence. Good, Aaliyah says. We file requests today. Bodycam master file, CAD time, radio log. If they delay, we file suit Friday. If they deliver, we let paper do what pride won't. Another chime. An email from the jogger. The subject line is a single question. If you hadn't worn the robe, would there be a warning? Ada reads it once, then sets the phone face down. We have our hook, she says. And our why. Aaliyah gestures to the screen. Road says you were legal. Lamp says the car was legal. Cameras say the sequence was not. And data says I am not the only one, Ada adds. Aaliyah closes the map, then reopens it with a small overlay. A thin band tracing the corridor where morning turned into memory. This stretch runs on sunshine and suspicion, she says. Let's reroute it. Ada smiles with her eyes. Training, she says. Early warning for officers who stack questions like that. Camera rules written down. Numbers made public. And when the desk says no violation again, Aaliyah asks. We teach them what a violation sounds like. Ada replies, tapping the timestamp beneath the printer's whir. On their own recording, Aaliyah gathers the laptop. Internal Affairs will reach out. The union will posture. Stay with the record. Friday is our clock. Friday, Ada repeats. She slides the 3-line note back on top of the HOA letter. Time, location, unit number. Beside it, Aaliyah leaves a shorter line, written in block print, as if for a camera to read. Right lane. Signal on. Minimum met. Outside, the slope to the courthouse brightens. Inside, 2 women let film become paper, and paper become change. The work has a path. The room is white and humming. Fluorescents flatten color into truth. Lieutenant Sarah Pike sits with a monitor and a jog wheel, a legal pad already striped with time codes. She rolls the body cam backward, then forward. The first question lands again. Is this your car? She writes 07-1609. Next. You live in this neighborhood? 07-1614. Finger near the collar. 07-1622. Thermal printers were before any request for identification. 07-1631. She circles that one twice. Headphones on, she cues the radio log. Tyler Grant's voice, younger over the air. Self-initiated. Vehicle moving slow in rich area. Checking it out. She stops the tape and looks at the sentence as if it might fix itself. It does not. Chief Raul Mendoza fills the doorway, arms crossed, then uncrossed. Where are we? Here. Pike taps 07-1631. And here. Radio shows the stop tied to neighborhood, not a stated violation. Video shows the ticket before any ID. The warning arrives after the caller reads, Judge. Media, Not yet. Jogger's clip is clean and circulating. We've got a records request on the desk. Mendoza glances up at the lights. They hum their hospital hum. Loop in the union, he says. And try not to light it on fire. Downstairs, the conference room sweats under the same white glare. The union rep slides a folder across the table. Our stance is procedural. Don't admit fault. Clarify policy. Stand behind the officer. Clarify policy, Mendoza repeats. Which part? Ask for license or don't announce the zip code? She keeps her voice flat. The city pays us to keep it together. Pike lays her time code sheet in the center. We don't need confessions. We need sequence. The camera caught one. The rep taps, or 7-16-31. That's a printer noise, not a statute. It's a fact, Pike says. Facts are what make policy honest. A junior aide cracks the door, whispers to Mendoza, hands him a printout. Subject line: don't admit fault. The body is longer, but says less. He folds it once. We need fewer words that say less, he mutters, and actions that make this impossible next month. Press is outside, the aide adds. Community clergy too. They step into the heat. Pastor Lorna Hayes stands on the steps with a small cluster. Parents in work shirts, a teacher with a lanyard, a teen with a bike helmet still clipped. No signs, just presence. Her voice carries without a mic. Dignity is not adjustable by zip code, she says. If a rule is real, it's real everywhere. Phones rise, then lower. Mendoza stops at the edge. We are reviewing, he begins. You are watching yourselves, Pastor Lorna replies. We are watching with you. Tell us where the rule bent. Pike takes one step forward. The order bent, she says. That is what our video shows. No cheer. Just a collective note taken in daylight. Back upstairs. The union rep lingers. You go public with order bent. You open a door you can't close. Doors stay closed when the air is bad, Pike says. We need circulation. Mendoza rubs the bridge of his nose. Cameras, he knows, keep better notes than memory. Draft the finding, he tells Pike. Minimum spin, maximum clarity. She returns to the monitor and scrubs to Ada's line. You haven't asked for my identification. The sentence arrives like a gavel without wood. Pike writes it down verbatim, underlines it twice. Do we suspend him? The union rep asks. We retrain him, Mendoza says, and we retrain the order. If the camera hears printers before IDs again, I won't need a finding to act. The aide's phone lights up. Chief, the email leaked. A screenshot pulses on her screen. Don't admit fault, overlaid with a caption that writes itself. Then we say what we should have said before anyone typed that, he answers. Pike opens a blank document. Title, Order of Events. She lists the spine in 4 lines. Stop. No ID. Ticket printed. Caller read. Ticket reduced. She adds one more. Radio, self-initiated, slow in rich area. She stares at the last line, then draws a thin box around it, as if to quarantine the infection. Rewrite the call code, Mendoza tells the aide. Nothing about zip codes, everything about articulable reasons. The aide nods. Internal affairs interview with the driver? Pike keeps her tone even. Invite her counsel. Put this in a room with better acoustics than the curb. To the judge, the union rep adds, not kindly. To the person who was stopped on a public road, Pike corrects. Outside, Pastor Lorna thanks the crowd. We will come back, she says. Bring chairs next time. We might be here a while. The white light presses evenly on every face. Pike feels the pressure and lets it sharpen her. She scrolls to the frame where badge and lens meet in the sedan's mirror. Both kinds of power inside the same small rectangle. She adds a note. Mirror corroborates printer before ID. Mendoza gathers himself. Press at noon, he says. We acknowledge sequence. We commit to policy review. We don't bury the tape. The union rep pockets her folder. This will get louder. It will get clearer, Mendoza replies. Pike signs the draft with her initials and the time, then writes a line at the bottom, a hook for the next room. Request council meeting, Friday. She saves the file, kills the sound, and sits in the quiet hum of white light that makes every flaw visible. Down the hall, a copier starts and stops. Somewhere, a clock ticks toward noon. And in Ada Whitfield's chambers, a phone will soon ring with an invitation. Internal Affairs would like to speak. Bring your attorney. Blinds lay narrow bands of daylight across Ida's table. Aaliyah Brooks sets a single page at the center like a metronome. Not a lawsuit, she says. A demand. Ada nods. An invitation to repair. Exactly. Aaliyah opens her laptop. The letter grows concise. Addressed to City Attorney Daniel Cho, Chief Raul Mendoza, and the city's risk office. She reads as she edits, voice even. This is what we are prepared to file if required. The morning at Fairmont Heights unfolded in this order. Stop. No request for identification. Ticket printed. Robe noted. Ticket reduced to warning. Radio. Self-initiated because slow in rich area. We request resolution within 14 days. Ida's pen taps once. And the number? 30, Aaliyah says. 30 million with reforms. We begin with what fixes the city. Why not higher? Because we are not punishing with a number yet. Aaliyah answers. We are inviting them to buy reform at a discount. If they decline, the filing will reflect what pride truly costs. Ada exhales. That's the sentence. Aaliyah adds 5 lines. The price of repair written as parts, not thunder. Independent monitor for 3 years. Mandatory training on stops and first-line supervision. Early warning system when sequence breaks. Public stop data each quarter. Policy rewrite. Identification first. Reason stated, no pretext. Mini payoff, the printer hums. Paper slides out, black on white, the way mornings become history. Show them why all 3 entities are named, Ada says. Short and plain, Aaliyah replies, typing as she speaks. Officer, questions used like cuffs, ticket before process, paper shifted after reading a caller. Department, no training that bolts the order down. City, a habit disguised as policy on a corridor where sunlight and suspicion travel together. Ada lifts the homeowner's key fob, then sets it down. I moved here last month. I want the first thing my neighbors learn about me to be this. I prefer precision to noise. Then precision is our pressure. A second page arrives on the table. The corridor chart Evan handed over, lines honest as a bruise. Black drivers, 28% of population, 52% of stops. Below minimum, rare, skew intact. Aaliyah photographs it and drops the image into the letter as Exhibit A. She adds one sentence that doesn't shout, "The disproportionality on your own sheet is the policy you pretend not to have." Too sharp? She asks. Just sharp enough, Ada says. Aaliyah signs. Ada signs. 2 quick squeaks of ink that have ended harder things. Mini payoff. Courtesy copy? Ada asks. Aaliyah slides a blue folder beside the letter, an unsigned draft complaint, with the caption lines left blank where the demands number would live. We bring it to the meeting, she says. Not filed, not priced. A quiet signal that the ceiling isn't written yet. So 30 for early resolution, Ada says. And after Thursday, we price pride, Aaliyah finishes. If they refuse repair or deny the corridor pattern, the complaint reflects the full cost. Maybe 50, maybe higher, depending on what they show us. Ada lets that live in the air. She looks at the 3 short notes she carried from the curb. Time, location, unit number. He gave me a warning only after reading the robe, she says. I would like the city to earn its warning before we read a number. Aaliyah smiles without showing it. Then we warn them well. She assembles the packet, demand letter, exhibits, map and signal, headlamp receipt, camera sync, corridor stops, and the blue folder. She types a subject line that refuses drama, demand and proposal for resolution. She presses send. Somewhere in City Hall, a chime answers. Within minutes, her phone vibrates. Daniel Cho. Received, Thursday, 2 p.m. Please bring your council packet. The city will attend with Chief Mendoza. A calendar invite follows. Precise to the minute. Ada tilts her head. They're earlier than Friday. They felt the clock, Aaliyah says, and the chart. Evan's text arrives next. If needed, I can attend. I filmed from "Is this your car?" to "Driver released." Aaliyah replies, Hold for now. Keep the morning on your phone. She turns back to Ada. We need a single line for the room, she says. No speeches. One sentence that locks the door behind us. Ada thinks, then offers it clean. If the robe had stayed in the closet, would there be a warning? Good, Aaliyah says, and I will add ours. If you decline this repair at this price, we will file at the price the pattern deserves. Another mini payoff. An auto reply from risk management, bland and nervous. Your correspondence has been routed. Translation. Everyone is reading. Ada places the demand on top of the unopened HOA welcome letter. I prefer to meet my neighborhood this way, she says, at a table. We'll keep them at a table, Aaliyah answers. No curbs, no guesses, just the road, the lamp, and the song the printer sang too soon. They stand. The blinds throw new stripes of daylight across the packet. Down the hall, a clock strikes the hour. Across town, the union drafts talking points that won't survive the camera's sequence. Under white lights, Internal Affairs prints an agenda for Friday. Bring counsel. Thursday, Ada says. Thursday, Aaliyah repeats. We offer them the discount. And if they chase quiet instead of change, Ada asks. Then we show them, Aaliyah says, what quiet costs. Thursday arrives like a clean sheet, and the city writes on it with a pencil. In a glass room at City Hall, Daniel Cho offers quiet without repair, an apology that doesn't travel, training under consideration, numbers later. He circles their 30 like a shopper, not a partner. Aaliyah listens, then closes the blue folder with the unsigned complaint. We invited you to buy reform at a discount, she says. You've chosen pride. Ada says nothing. The room hears it anyway. Friday, 9 a.m., the complaint goes in. Officer Grant, Riverbend PD, City of Fairmont, and the price of pride leaves the draft and lands in ink. 50 million sits where timidity used to live. The clerk stamps the moment. Paper remembers. Defense answers with a stack of confidence and emotion dressed in old armor. Qualified immunity, Daniel says on the courthouse steps, his tone matter-of-fact. Inside, a judge reads fast and writes faster. The order is lean, facts, sequence. pattern. The motion is denied. Mini payoff. No applause, only the click of pens as counsel take notes they will quote later. Discovery opens like a window that has been stuck for years. Air pours in, along with dates and emails and the quiet weight of policy that pretended not to exist. The first deposition is Tyler's. He sits under soft lights, a glass of water sweating onto the table. The court reporter swears him in. The stenotype begins its small, relentless music. Aaliyah slides a single frame across the table, the moment the printer sings before any request for identification. "What is this sound?" she asks. "The printer," Tyler says. "And what is this?" she asks, placing the next still, sun on a collar, the stitched letters catching it clean. That's the robe." "After you saw it," she says. "What happened to the ticket you printed?" He looks at the water, not the image. "It became a warning. Because," he searches for a word soft enough to pass. "Because of context." "Whose context?" Aaliyah asks. "Yours or the law's?" He does not answer. The reporter records the silence as carefully as the speech. Mini payoff. Aaliyah presses play. The room hears the printer before any version of license, please. The reporter notes the time code. The chief comes next. Raul Mendoza arrives with a jaw of stone, his folder thick with talking points. Aaliyah doesn't need them. She needs gaps. "What training did the department give on sequence?" she asks. He names modules, and then admits they are periodic, not enforced, not audited for compliance. "Do you have an early warning system that flags printers before IDs?" He pushes breath through his nose. "No." "Do you track stops marked slow in rich area?" He looks at the table. "No." She slides the corridor chart across. He studies the tilt, population 28, stops 52, and something in his face concedes what words won't. "We will change the order," he says, finally. The reporter's keys translate it into a line the city cannot swallow back. Internal affairs follows. Lieutenant Pike brings her time codes like nickels lined on a counter. Aaliyah taps a page. "This email, don't admit fault. Who wrote it?" Pike says the title, not the name. "What did you do when you read it?" "I kept watching the tape." "Did the tape admit anything?" "It admitted sequence," Pike says. "And sequence bent." Another pen clicks. Another breath becomes record. Evan the runner sits in a chair that squeaks and holds up his phone. "I can airdrop the full clip," he says. And in a blink, the city's angle meets the citizens. The frames nest like dovetails. From "Is this your car?" to "Driver released," he says. Aaliyah aligns them on the printer's song. Match. She aligns on "You don't look like a judge." Match. She aligns on "You haven't asked for my identification." Match. Mini payoff. 2 clocks agreeing is louder than 1 clock shouting. The law speaks in the room without raising its voice. The reporter's machine keeps its rhythm. Pens tick, files turn. Daniel Cho watches Aaliyah's economy. No speeches, only steps. He asks his own questions, careful, measured. "Judge Whitfield," he begins, "did you feel physically threatened?" Ada's counsel lifts a finger. "We will answer what matters," Aaliyah says, "and we will not dignify what does not." Daniel pivots. "Would you have filed if you weren't a judge?" Ada looks at the recorder, not at him. "I filed because I am a neighbor," she says, "and because neighbors deserve sequence." By week's end, the boxes in Aaliyah's office hold more than pleadings. They hold air that used to live behind doors. The city's story, once tidy, now has pages it hoped never to read. Daniel calls with a new tone, less forecast, more weather report. "We'd like to talk again," he says. "Not press. Terms." "Bring policy," Aaliyah answers. "Bring numbers. Bring a calendar that reaches further than next quarter." "Bring humility," Ida adds softly, and the phone is quiet on the line for a beat that counts as agreement. They hang up. The pens stop. The room breathes. The knock arrives on a Friday morning. The court sets a status conference, nudging the parties toward mediation. Not because the facts are muddy, but because the remedy could be larger than any single morning. The judge's clerk reads the date. Friday. Ada closes her eyes a moment, remembering another Friday, a curb, a printer. "Let's finish what began with that sound," she says. "And write a better one," Aaliyah answers, clicking her pen once. Sharp, precise, enough. Sun threads the courthouse dome and spills through the glass in careful bands. In the first row of the gallery, Ada Whitfield sits straight, hands folded, robe sleeve just visible where her coat falls open. She does not speak. Across the well, a monitor on a cart is paused on chrome reflecting a red blink. Judge Alvarez takes the bench. "We are here on the city's motions and next steps." Her voice is even. Aaliyah Brooks stands for the plaintiff. Daniel Cho stands for the city, the department, and Officer Grant. Daniel begins. "Your Honor, the city acted in good faith. The officer perceived slow driving and a possible equipment issue. He exercised discretion. No search occurred. We are open to mediation." His tone is matter-of-fact. Aaliyah nods once toward the monitor. "Play 10 seconds. The printer whirs before any request for identification. The court reporter marks the time. A pen clicks somewhere in the well. Aaliyah steps forward, voice low, precise. "Your Honor, under the Fourth Amendment, the rule is simple. The officer must be able to state a specific, articulable basis for a stop. A hunch is not a basis. A zip code is not a basis. Here, he never gave a valid reason before initiating and then prolonging the detention." She lets the frame advance to the collar catching morning light. That takes us to Section 1983. Acting under color of law, his badge and uniform, he executed a stop driven by prejudice rather than procedure. That is exactly what Part 1983 exists to remedy. She lifts a single page and sets it on the lectern. And it leads to Monell. The city's failures, training gaps, no early warning when sequence breaks, radio calls keyed to neighborhoods, show a practice, not an aberration. A custom with consequences is, in law, a policy. Under Monell, the city is liable for that policy. Judge Alvarez glances at the monitor. "Mr. Cho?" Daniel keeps his eyes on the judge. The officer adjusted on scene. Once identity was clarified, he exercised restraint. The city is reviewing training and is already moving toward a liaison council. This can be resolved without burdening the court. Aaliyah doesn't look away from the screen. The sequence on the tape confirms the problem. Printer before license, please. Warning only after the robe was recognized. Discretion isn't a substitute for the rule. The jogger's angle appears beside the bodycam. 2 windows, same morning. Aaliyah aligns them on sound. Match. She aligns on, "You don't look like a judge." Match. She aligns on, "You haven't asked for my identification." Match. Paper shuffles. The reporter's hands keep their small, relentless music. "Mr. Cho," Judge Alvarez asks, eyes on a second binder, "is the corridor chart authentic?" "It appears to be an internal draft," he says. Drafts still count when the numbers match the street. Aaliyah answers, measured. Population 28%, stops 52%. Below minimum rare, yet tilted the same direction. If you accept federal funds, you do not run suspicion differently by skin and zip. Daniel steadies his voice. We do not concede bias. We do concede the need to tighten sequence and clarify expectations. Aaliyah responds with 2 words that land softly and stay, then begin. A brief silence. In the front row, Ada does not move. The light on the glass moves for her, an inch, then another. Judge Alvarez leans forward. Motions to dismiss are denied. She turns a page. The court will refer this matter to mediation with a magistrate. Discovery will proceed. Bodycam masters, radio logs, training protocols, early warning records, and stop data for the corridor. Daniel writes quickly. Understood. Aaliyah adds, we will supply our copies of the bystander video and the inspection receipt. Good, the judge says. She looks back to Daniel. Counsel, if the city intends to resolve, bring policy, not platitudes. Daniel nods. We will, Your Honor. He tries one more turn. The plaintiff's status as a federal judge, optics matter. The plaintiff is a neighbor who was stopped, Aaliyah says. The robe is a fact, not a weapon. The court agrees, Judge Alvarez replies. She will be treated as any plaintiff. The judge rises. Files close. Pens are capped. The scrape of chairs becomes the only argument left in the room. Mini payoff. Aaliyah doesn't speak to the press. She turns to the cart and powers down the monitor last, letting the black screen keep the reflection a heartbeat longer. In the aisle, Daniel approaches, voice lower. We can talk terms, he says. Not press, policy. Bring numbers, Aaliyah replies. Bring a timeline that starts with identification, not printers. Message received. Ada stands, still silent. The dome sends down a square of light that fits her shoulders. She inclines her head once to Aaliyah, approval, not applause. The knock arrives on a Friday morning. The court sets a status conference, nudging the parties toward mediation. The clerk hands dates in a thin stack. Outside, cameras murmur against the marble, waiting for quotes that won't come. On the steps, Pastor Lorna stands with 3 parents and a teacher. No signs, only presence. Dignity isn't negotiable, she says to no microphone in particular. Schedule the dignity, and the policy will follow. Back inside, Aaliyah gathers the exhibits. Mediation will be a room, not a stage, she says. And in that room, Ada asks, we bring the road, the lamp, and the song the printer sang too soon. Aaliyah answers. And we ask one question. Ada knows it. If the robe had stayed in the closet, would there be a warning? They reach the door. Sun catches the brass push bar. For a moment, it reads like a gavel with light instead of wood. The next act has a table, not a curb. And sequence, finally, has a schedule. The mediation room is all glass and clock. No seal, no gallery, just a table, a pitcher, and a neutral who listens for the moment people stop pretending. Aaliyah opens with positions, not history. We need reform with teeth and a number that makes it real. Daniel Cho. We'll refine training, engage a council, and resolve for far less than 30. The neutral asks for a clean figure. Daniel offers 18, no admission, no monitor, NDA. Aaliyah caps her pen. Training without sequence is theater. She slides the packet back across the table and stands. The neutral calls a caucus. In the city room, the union's text blinks on Chief Mendoza's phone. No apology, No admission. Cap at 25. He keeps his eyes on the table. Daniel raises to 22. Adds a liaison counsel, still no monitor. Quiet solution, he says. Aaliyah shakes her head. Quiet without order is costume. She rises again. For a second the settlement wobbles. The neutral splits them once more. With the city, she is blunt. The leaked "don't admit fault" email is snowballing. The judge has set a status conference. The corridor chart will not unprint itself. With the plaintiff, she is calmer. If you want guarantees, get them now. Aaliyah nods. We will. Back together, Daniel moves to 30 with audits. Policy is moving, he says. Aaliyah lays a short ladder. Independent monitor for 3 years. Early warning with triggers. Civilian board with subpoena power. Data public by quarter. A release policy for body and dash cam. Stop protocol. Reason first, then action. ID requested in order. Take a leg and the stool falls, she says. A staffer slips into the city room and whispers in Mendoza's ear. The mayor won't sign anything soft. An independent monitor is the price of calm before the election. His jaw sets. The union's phone buzzes again. He silences it. Daniel lifts to 40, offers a monitor so thin it casts no shadow, refuses an apology. Aaliyah reaches for the blue folder, the signed complaint waiting for a file stamp. She places it beside the corridor chart. 30 buys reform quietly. If you pass, we file the full cost. 40 is the ceiling, Daniel says. Silence. Then the twist lands like weather. The city risk manager rushes a note to Daniel. He reads twice. The municipal insurer won't touch punitive exposure and has revised the trial risk. Projected verdict value between 70 and 90 given the tape and the leak. Premiums jump without structural fixes. Recommendation: settle at or above 50 with a monitor that actually reduces future losses. He passes the note to Mendoza. Pride does math again. Harder this time. Mendoza looks at Aaliyah, then at Ada, who has not said a word. He speaks to Daniel without looking away from them. We settle for change, or we don't settle. It is not surrender. It is selection. The union text buzzes again. He powers the phone off. Daniel exhales. 50, he says carefully, with the package. Policy before microphones, Aaliyah replies. Agreed, the neutral says, voice like a door closing gently. Let's write. Terms in principle. 50 million, joint across Officer Grant, the department, and the city. Independent monitor with public reports for 3 years. Mandatory training with audits. Early warning system with thresholds that force review. A civilian oversight board with subpoena power. A release policy for dash and bodycam within set timelines. Quarterly public stop data. Stop protocol requiring a stated basis before detention and identification in the proper order. No non-disclosure, no gag. Council approval required. Court to enter the agreement. They initial the draft, not the victory. Ada signs last. One motion like a breath placed on paper. The neutral stacks the pages. Outside, the building feels the crowd returning. Camera tripods click open like folding legs. Daniel, softer now. We'll shepherd this through council. Mendoza nods once. We'll apologize with order, not smoke. Aaliyah caps her pen. Sequence first. Mini payoff. The neutral's pen clicks on the signature page. Not as a warning, but as punctuation you can hear. No microphones yet. The parties leave by separate doors. In the hallway, Pastor Lorna stands with neighbors in work shirts and school lanyards, holding chairs the way people hold ground. She does not ask for a quote. She asks for a time. Tuesday night, Daniel says. Council vote open session. Mendoza adds, courthouse steps Wednesday morning. Ada pauses at the glass. She finally speaks, one line meant for the next room. If the robe had stayed in the closet, would there be a warning? Daniel doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The answer is priced. They file the draft with the court as a notice of settlement in principle. The clerk sets a deadline for final papers. The neutral closes her folder. The clock does not cheer. It keeps time. The agreement is initialed, but the mourning is not yet finished. 3 acts remain, waiting just outside the door. The press conference, the disciplinary hearing, the council vote. The badge has not yet been placed on the tray. The apology has not yet been spoken into the light. The final click will not be a beginning. It will be an end. Morning returns without ceremony. Ada turns in under the arch of the federal courthouse, tires murmuring on stone, sunlight tipping the edge of her windshield. In the glass beside the entrance, her nameplate catches a clean stripe. Judge Ada Whitfield. The reflection holds, steady and square, as if the building itself remembers a morning when a mirror showed a badge and a blink and a doubt. 2 nights earlier, the city council took its vote in public. Folding chairs creaked. Hands rose. The clerk read the tally. Approved. No gag orders, no hush. Just the terms on paper and the clock to enforce them. Now the dome hosts a different crowd. Reporters line the steps. Pastor Lorna stands with neighbors in work shirts and school lanyards. The chief steps forward, not to spin, but to square. His voice is plain. We failed the order. We will retrain. We will publish the numbers. We will be watched. I apologize to Judge Whitfield and to this city. No applause. The echo is enough. Inside a smaller room, a metal tray waits. Tyler Grant lifts his badge, the way a man lifts a habit he finally sees. He lays it down. It lands with a tidy sound, not dramatic, but final. He signs what the agreement requires. Suspension, training, a return only after audit. No one says a word. Consequence does not need a narrator. The reforms begin where they must, inside the map of days. Patrol briefings open with reason before action. Supervisors learn to read the early warning dashboard the way pilots read instruments. When sequence slips, a light blinks on a screen and a human shows up. Early. Body and dash cam policies get a clock. The city posts footage on schedule and posts the schedule where everyone can see it. The Independent Monitor publishes the first report without adjectives. Ada watches none of this on a podium. She watches it in documents and in quiet rooms where paper outlasts microphones. After court, she walks the long corridor in her steady shoes and remembers that first curb. Questions used like cuffs. A printer that sang before the law spoke. A robe recognized too late for dignity. She had not raised her voice. She had raised the record, mirror to mirror. On one morning, she sat in a car and was measured by a zip code. On this morning, she steps through a door and is measured by a rule. The distance between those mornings is not miles. It is sequence. She pauses at the stair, robe sleeve catching light the way the nameplate did outside. She does not address cameras. Law over noise. Poise over rage. The lesson, when it finally arrives, is simple enough to speak once and put away. Abuse of power is not only unlawful, it erodes the trust that lets a city function. When process stands upright, dignity does not have to shout. Back at her desk, she takes the 3-line receipt from a drawer, time, location, unit number, and adds one more word beneath them. Repaired. A body camera somewhere ends a file. The click is not a beginning anymore. It is a period. What about you? If every traffic stop had to follow a short, universal script, which steps should always be mandatory and visible? If this story moved you, follow along as we keep asking for sequence in daylight.